Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 204. As always, to give people time to get in, etc., I am going to start us off with a tune.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need. To wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wild. Your new God's sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love that heed and folly? Bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, a loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall weigh your gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly proffered laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come down to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with give or wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all of thankless years.
And that was, of course, the excellent Chris Gard. Please go and check out his YouTube channel. He's a good true blue Aussie and one of us, one of our friends. Works as a roofer when he's not doing real musicianship like that. So yeah, go and check out Chris Gard's channel on YouTube. Actually runs a roofing business, I should say, to be more accurate. Okay, welcome to my guest this evening. I'm not sure if Atman's going to join us today. I hope he will. He's certainly been sent a link. So let's start this evening. As always, I'm going to ask people if they have a first subject for this evening, and I'll start with Hitman because he's not been on for a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Iron Duke. Well, I think the subject I'd like to start with is the resignation of Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister of Canada.
Well, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, so finally, the wankers resigned. Yeah, God,
Yep.
it couldn't come sooner.
Hip hip hooray! Good, huzzah! I'm glad he has. I think there's going to be a bit of a, from what I understand from listening to my Canadian friends, there's going to be a few months when nothing much is going to happen because Trudeau's done some sort of con, which means he won't have to call the election until after his crappy Liberal Party has had enough time to sort themselves out a bit. I think that's correct, although any Canadian in the chat can correct me.
Well, essentially, so Canada has elections every 4 years. So their last election was the snap one Trudeau called in September 2021. So they're due to have one in September this year. So that's going to happen anyway. It's just that obviously there's a prospect of it happening early because obviously the Liberals don't have a majority. So if they lose, say, no confidence vote, it could happen sooner. However, because Trudeau's prorogued Parliament, so essentially shut it down, they can't have any vote to do that while they're electing a new leader.
So, in other words, they've shut down the Canadian government in order to allow the lefty Liberals to sort themselves out, which sounds like a bit of a con job to me. But I mean,
it is what it is, and it's just absurd that with 3 months to elect your leader. I think again, it's silly because ultimately there's an election that's going to happen by autumn anyway. We know the Liberals are going or almost guaranteed to be chucked out of the government. It's just a farce.
Yeah, that's what I understand. We had Endeavour on here a few weeks ago talking about the prospects for the upcoming Canadian elections. And I will hopefully have him on again soon.
I remember
talk about the latest situation. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I was on for that one. It was a good talking to him.
Yeah, Endeavour's a good guy. I like him very much.
Yeah, it's kind of blackpilling looking at Canada because apparently like 44% of their population are already foreigners or descended from foreigners. So only 56% are actually found in Anglo or French stock, pretty much. That's pretty blackpilling about Canada at the moment. I think on one hand, it's quite jarring. Like you think like 5 years ago, Canada was very much pro mass immigration. And nowadays, because of the Indians have imported, it's gone completely 180 on itself because of all the Indians have imported, just like what Boris did over here.
Yeah, these people are totally alien to our cultures. This is just a fact. They are. Their beliefs are totally alien to ours. You've had the grooming gang scandal in Britain, the ongoing grooming gang scandal, because I really worry sometimes that some people think this was something in the past. I think it's still going on. In fact, I'm certain it's still going on. It's not good. Freedom-loving loyalist, who I think's Canadian in the chat, given he's got the old Canadian red ensign flag as his avatar, is saying that America's demographics are worse than Canada's, which, maybe they are, yeah, for sure.
I mean, Canada, it's like, is it something like 56 to 60 odd % native? Like, I say native stock as in like Anglos and of course a Quebec Swa, who
well, I mean, when you're talking about Canadian native stock, you've got to say Anglos and also Celts, of course, because there's a lot of Scottish descent people in Canada, and they're founding stock too.
So I saw that Canadian Conservative, that Pierre Poilievre, if I'm pronouncing his name right, he was celebrating John Macdonald, the first Prime Minister of Canada, of course. He was born in Scotland, of course, as you can tell by the name. And if you look up some of his quotes regarding, what he thinks the racial demographics of Canada should be. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of it contravenes 100% against what because I mean, I think like Endeavour said it best. Like whenever you see Pierre Poilievre doing like a photo stunt or whatever, it's always with a load of Indians. And I think Maxime Bernier has been doing some of that as well, unfortunately, where he's just everyone's in photos and everyone's in photo shoots with loads of Indians in a given room.
Yeah.
I think
one thing I'd say, Mitch, is that when you look at Canada's Scottish heritage, look at Nova Scotia, for example. That's New Scotland. So
I mean you got Newfoundland, which is literally just either English or Irish. I think that's the only real stock you've got in Newfoundland. And I think I've heard Canadian right wingers who hate Newfoundland. Even like a couple of Newfoundlanders I used to follow, like Robin Riley. They'll just hate Newfoundland because every time there's an election, Newfoundland always votes for the Liberal Party because they can get more federal money under a Liberal government as opposed to under a Conservative government. For example, Alberta seems to be the best best province of Canada.
Yeah, the prairie states in Canada are the more right-wing ones on the whole. But of course, they have less immigration, which is partly why they're more right-wing.
Yeah, but it's also because I remember talking to a guy during a general election over here who used to work in Alberta. Like he used to work as a lorry driver up there, and he said basically Alberta was like the best province of Canada to make a living because there's a lot more libertarian over there, so you didn't get taxed as much compared to say Ontario or Quebec, and also I think it's in northern Alberta where you got loads of oil wells, and it's very material rich, and also Alberta's been like quite smart with how it handles its own finances, whereas other parts of Canada, for example, we've got Vancouver, which is pretty much just Chinatown at this point, with how much property there is owned by Chinese billionaires.
As I understand it, and I'm not Canadian, but as I understand it from my Canadian friends, Canada is a little bit like America in that the east and west coasts are the lefty parts, basically.
Well, with British Columbia, it's a bit more complicated because Vancouver is a liberal hellhole, but the rest of the province is quite conservative, from what I understand.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense, Hitman.
And also, just to jump in with that, like in California, for example, I mean, a lot of our American friends will say California is actually quite a red state if you look at the rural areas, and it's only just concentrated in the urban coastal counties in California. But because of that, that's why places like California and Washington, Oregon vote heavily for the Democrat Party. I still understand with British Columbia that it's still like the nominal right wing party there. I don't know if they're the Conservatives or Progressive Conservative. I don't know what they call themselves, but the nominal right wing party still was able to win outright against the Liberal Party in British Columbia.
Good. Yeah. Excellent. Any other thoughts, Hitman, on this?
Well, again, I'm glad just to see him gone, but I don't know if any of you guys
100%,
did. But, I don't know if any of you guys saw, but Distributist had Black Horse on his show earlier this week to talking about this and about the state of Canada in general, and it's interesting to hear Black Horse's assessment. Essentially, Trudeau, the reason he's gone is that basically the Laurentian Eastern Canadian elite that support the Liberal Party, they're still very pro-Liberal. They just hate Justin Trudeau, and that's why he's gone. And that actually they wanted him to go a lot sooner. It's just because of his stubborn, bloody-mindedness that he's only just gone now. And that if they'd had their way, he probably would have gone in 2022 after the trucker protest, because him freezing all those people's bank accounts was seen as too far by even for them.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. Black Horse is actually, I've watched a couple of Black Horse streams this week. The one you talk about with Dave, the Distributist, who I like. He's a good dude. And of course, Dave's Dave's good lady wife is a Canadian lady. And he was also on an excellent stream with Radlib as well. Black Horse was on a stream with Radlib last week, which was also worth looking at because they were talking, they talked a little bit at the start about the Canadian political situation, but most of the stream was about how if you are in a particular socio-economic group, you can improve yourself and move up to the next group. So I would recommend that stream with Radlib and Black Horse. That's good.
Yeah, the only other thing I can see about Black Plymouth Canada is like you have a People's Party of Canada under Maxime Bernier, who at the moment have no seats, and it looks like, in terms of it looks of him not set to gain any seats from what we can see. I mean, Maxime Bernier is what he's basically Canadian for. He's not even that. He's basically like a Gladstonian liberal kind of conservative. If you get that, so he's not really that right wing. It's just compared to the status quo. Yeah, he is. But the fact is, also, like for example, I think like the Liberal Party, they predicted to go from 100. Because at the moment we've got something like 160 odd seats, and they're predicted to go down to like only 16 seats left in the House of Commons.
Well, the thing is that's with Trudeau's leader. If they get someone else in who we don't know, we'll see. They're saying it's either going to be his former deputy PM who resigned a couple of weeks ago, or it could possibly be, arch regime man, former Bank of England governor Mark Carney. If they really want to, like,
I know that guy. Yeah, I remember that guy when he was running the Bank of England. What an asshole! Yeah, okay.
Well, he's Canadian, so he allegedly can become Prime Minister of Canada, but he's not even a Liberal MP, so don't know how they're going to manage that. So,
would a by-election? Could they just do a quick by-election and safe seat by-election?
Maybe. Yeah, they'd have to, like, I don't know, get like a random Liberal MP to resign and then try and shoot him in.
Well, look, we've got quite a few Canadians in our Discord, and I might even try and get one or two of them on next week, and maybe Endeavour if he's free, to talk about this subject. Because the stream after that, not next week, but the one after, is going to be an Australia Day Splendid Isolation stream because it's on Australia Day, and so I'm hoping to get some Aussie guests on for that one. But next week we might try and get a couple of Canadians on to give us their takes on this stuff. I mean, when I say Canadians, I mean obviously Canadians who are our friends. So but yeah. Any other thoughts on that one, gents?
The only thing is, you just to probably hammer home that the Trudeau legacy, father and son, have, in my mind,
is he his son? AI, is he his son? I mean, his mother was an infamous swinger, so one must wonder about this.
Well, and also, Fidel Castro did make a state visit to Canada around the time he would have been conceived, so there is a family resemblance.
Well, either way, the fathers fucked up their native countries to some degree, and I do think the legacy of the Trudeau family as a whole, for Canada, has been of irreparable damage to Canadian identity and to its true identity of being Britain. I put a tweet out the other day where I said Canada is British. And it goes back to various clips we also see of old Australia when they say Australia is British, New Zealand is British, and so on. And it's just a reminder that these Commonwealth lands didn't spring out of nothing. It wasn't like America where it was sprung out from a Revolutionary War of Independence or some split. This is fundamentally they're fundamentally British people. They're English people.
Well, to be fair, apart from the people from Quebec who are French, but who were always very loyal to Canada when it came to like US invasions and so on. So, yeah.
Well, we don't count the Quebecans, but yeah. I mean, all jokes aside on that point, yeah. The fundamentals is it is a British society in North America. In North America, it is separate from the United States, and people like what freedom-loving loyalists in chat, just by his use of the old flag, which if I remember correctly, that was done away. What was it? Was it by Trudeau's father?
That was Trudeau's dad. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Trudeau's dad. And there has been a concerted effort by that family and by the Liberal Party and by progressives in Canada for many decades now to siphon off and basically suppress any connection with Britain, with the mother country. And for me, that is and now you're seeing this I guess you're seeing this recent attempt by a MAGA and people in America jokingly, but also on a serious note, that they would see, well, Canada should become like the 51st state. And I guess in some ways, why shouldn't they at this point? Because I mean, I don't think they should, don't get me wrong, but because of that sort of identity has been suppressed in like the mass popular conception. I mean, I know you got Canadians who do still have that identity, but let's be honest, it's not the majority. It's not pushed by the establishment in Canada at today.
Oh no, it's not. But I've got to tell you, I had a mate when I was in the SADF in the South African Defence Force in the 80s, who was a ex-Canadian Army dude, and he had a huge old-fashioned red ensign Canadian flag in his home, and most of the guys who I like, who are Canadians, actually prefer that flag to the maple leaf thing. So
Well,
and also don't forget that flag also represented the Quebecois, the French Canadians. That was also represented on that old red ensign flag.
It is funny because I do see with family and relatives who out in Newfoundland. In
Newfoundland, mate. Newfoundland.
Newfoundland, who still use the old separate flag, not the old Canadian red ensign, but the separate one.
You mean the flag of Newfoundland, because they actually were still a British colony up until 1948, and they, I think, were very reluctantly forced to join Canada because they didn't really want to join. Because I don't.
That's true.
That's the. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. I don't know if it's still the state, the provincial flag to this day. I don't know if that is the case. I haven't checked, to be honest, but I still see a lot of that. Because I've got I've actually got here somewhere in here, somewhere in my bedroom, somewhere. I've got an old rip page from Flags of the World from 1933, 34. And of course, most of the page is made up of the of Britain, the Empire, and the Commonwealth, as you can imagine. And so it has all the various sort of listings.
That's a very nice historical artifact there, AI.
Yeah, I've got the it's really funny because and I mean, like, you got the Indian, the old Indian flag. British Indian flag. I think they even include. I think it's a bit of a push to include it, but they do include the Jersey flag on there as well. So,
well, I mean, all of those flags are legitimate flags. But anyway, I noticed we lost Mitch. Hopefully he'll come back shortly. So, any final comments on Canada this week?
Well, you've obviously got the Trump claiming he wants to annex Canada. So, I mean,
I
personally,
think Trump's getting a bit carried away there, but okay.
yeah, I think he is, and I know some American bros have seemingly be quite pro it, but in all seriousness, no, I think it's not going to happen. And even if it did, I think
Not a
it's not worth it.
chance.
And it's not going to happen.
There's not a chance of it happening. Listen, I don't always agree with AA, but AA did a video about a week ago, and he was talking about several things, like Trump saying he wanted to annex Panama and Canada and Greenland. And out of all those, the only one that might conceivably happen would be Greenland. And I even doubt that, to be honest with you.
I do think Trump and America do have a leg to stand on with Panama, if they wanted to. I do think they could.
Yeah, for sure. If they really wanted to push it, I just don't think it's very likely.
No.
Like Denmark might sell Greenland, but I would be surprised, to be honest.
The from my understanding, the EU has already said no. They've basically said no on Denmark's behalf on that point. So I don't know.
It's more down to Denmark than the EU, but anyway, yeah. But I mean, I to be honest, I wouldn't really support it. As an Englishman, I wouldn't. You know, Greenland's always been Danish, so let it stay Danish.
I mean, there is something I will, because I look, if you look at places we were talking like Alberta and British Columbia and the what was it, Denmark, sorry, Greenland, for example. You see these societies which, particularly in Greenland, it's still overwhelmingly, Christian, with a small percentage of like the Inuit faith. The demographics, I think, is still majority Inuit, though there is obviously Danish, sizable Danish percentage of the population, but it is rather, homogenous. Apart from that, from the two groups there, and of course, if places say like British Columbia or Alberta were to become like states or within or territories within this a greater United States, how many like Hispanics and Mexicans would be would move in to those places? You would see like the quick Americanization of these places, not just on a sort of social economic level, but just on like a pure demographic level as well, which would sort of just cause to go downhill. Because there's this weird assumption that some on the left in America make, and I think both left and right are sort of both wrong on this, is that, well, if Canada joins the United States, they will all vote Democrat, which I don't think would bear out in reality at all. That seems like a bit of a cope, and I've seen that for a long time. You see, though, like those maps, like say, actually, like all the states that vote Republican vote Democrat, and it shows Canada included in this, and they all vote Democrat, which I don't think would be the case.
Listen, I think Mr. Jenny Benevolent got it right in the chat that Trump is essentially shitposting with most of this stuff, to be honest.
Yeah, there was somebody on, I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody I saw on social media saying that Trump usually does this when he's about to, do something which is going to be controversial with his support base. And this is like a distraction technique. So
I saw someone saying that, but I'm not sure if I believe that either. Look, to me, with Trump, the first test of his presidency is going to be, does he pardon all the January 6th people? If he does that, then he passes the first test of his presidency. He needs to pardon all of the January 6th people. If he doesn't do that, then I think we've got room to turn around and say, what's he doing?
Yes.
That's my view. But this stuff about Greenland and Canada, and it Trump's just shitposting, which he does. And one of the reasons I like Trump is the guy's got a sense of humor. I know many Europeans don't like him because they think he's not serious. I like him. He's got a sense of humor.
Right. So, for example, you have Bo, who got deselected from Reform because the whole thing about you can't make jokes in politics in the way that Trump and Bo have done. So
yeah, look, I don't disagree, mate. Look, I like Bo. I've done streams with Bo. I will do streams in the future with Bo if he's willing to do so, especially on history. So yeah, you're not wrong, Mitch. But,
yeah, so if Bo gets deselected, pretty much we're making a joke about Scotland, then what's he say about the president of America? Basically, just acting like an internet shit poster. I mean, I'll be honest, I was hoping we wouldn't talk about this because it's just going to be more of me just going America delenda est, to be honest. But yeah, I'm just looking at this going. I mean, the Americans are not our friends. They're gobbing off about wanting to take over Canada. The Magatard movement, they're all zeroed in on it because.
Who do you mean when you say the Americans, Mitch?
The Magatards at the moment.
All of them?
Well, all over Twitter, it seems there's a pretty near unanimity. So I think it's fair to say the vast majority of the Magatards, if not all of them.
Look, I tell you what, Mitch. When I was 25, I would have totally agreed with you, but I'm older now, and there's a lot of opinions in America. All right, there are.
One thing you have to keep in mind, though, is that with Trump, there's a real cult of personality around him in some ways.
For sure.
So if Trump says something, and pretty much vast majority of people on the MAGA side will go ahead fully with it. It's like Farage has the same other way. There's a lot of people who are just so devoted to Farage they'll never criticize him. Perhaps on that in a way that I don't realise yet, but.
I'm not gonna comment on Farage and cult of personality because last time I did it on this this channel, there was a few spurring out moments. So I'll keep quiet on that front.
Look, AI. There's a lot of people misquoting Farage about stuff.
I did see today there was ITV deliberately misquoted him. I did see that is a fair point. He didn't say that at all, but I think it was about Shireen Begum. There's a lot of stuff that he didn't say about that, and it's been misquoted, and that is a bit suspicious in some regards. But that is with Trump though. Forget about Farage. Just say with Trump. I mean, I miss Trump of 2016. I think Trump of 2024, 25 is different from Trump of 2016. I do like go back and watch like 2016, 2015,
I
2016
hope you're
Trump.
right, AI. In many respects, I hope you're right, because I think Trump in 2016 was relatively innocent. And these days, he's got a much better idea of what he's facing.
I may be in some regards on that level, but I don't know, that sort of energy of like Trump of 2016 would say, no, this is American job for American workers sort of rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
That is the sort of Trump that I remember of 2016. It was like putting America first. And with a lot of the recent events, especially around Elon, and because he has, and the things we haven't really heard from Trump, like it's kind of like it's like Elon has won the presidential election. Like he's the one that sort of seems to be like calling the shots on Twitter, at least. Like that's how it appears. But I don't know. We shall see.
Maybe.
See.
Maybe.
Well,
Hitman, did you have anything you wanted to add on this Canadian stuff?
Well, whether we're just talking about Trump and the change from 2016, I definitely can feel that he's lost a little bit of his energy. And obviously, age is going to do that to you. But we mentioned Endeavour earlier when we were talking about Canada. Well, Endeavour had quite a damning take of Trump on Telegram, which I just want to share. So this is Endeavour. Trump's rant the other day reminds me of Winston Churchill during his second term in office, 1951 to 1955, a deluded old man in his late 70s, unable to understand the fact that the empire he governed is no longer the superpower it was 40 years prior. Now, my initial thoughts was a certain phrase Semagog likes to use, which is tough but fair.
Mhm.
What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there is a bit to that. I also, I mean, on a separate, I do wonder how much, we all, I mean, on this show, we broke on this show the incident where Trump was shot. I do wonder how much that has affected him, personally. Like, if that, I mean, it's sort of been brushed off. He sort of brushed it off and everything, but there have been like some people reporting that for weeks on end afterwards he was rewatching clips of him being shot, and so I do wonder if he has like not lost his mind, but he's been like deeply affected by it on a way that you know that because he what was it he was shot I think in September, and he got elected in November, so it was kind of all very like a period of go.
Oh, hello? Did AI cut out?
Hello.
Oh, I
Oh,
can hear you.
oh, so sorry, I think I must have cut out. So what part did you get up to?
I think you said something about Trump going.
Oh, yeah, Trump. I was sort of just on the gist. To summarize it, I was just saying, Trump being shot, and how it affected him. Uh, Maybe why we're seeing like Trump now. He's sort of a bit more withdrawn, and that lacks certain energy.
Mm. It's almost like Johnson after COVID. He wasn't the same man, was he?
Yeah, that sort of that sort of charismatic life of the party sort of personality was just gone.
Well, speaking of
You'll pardon me if I just say that Alexander Boris Johnson was always a con job. When he said let's get Brexit done, what he meant was let's not really do Brexit at all. And his most infamous action, of course, was going to Ukraine and scuppering the peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, which has resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths. So you'll pardon me if I'm not a big fan of Alexander Boris Johnson.
Oh no, nor am I. And in fact, speaking of Boris in Ukraine, did you see there was an interview he did earlier that got shared, and in that interview he called Vladimir Putin a fucking idiot.
There's a case of a pot calling a kettle black, but there we go. Look, I'm not an American, so I don't know. I'm going to watch and see what Trump does rather than what people say he will and will not do. We'll see. I think at the worst, he will move things in our direction. I think he wants to stop the war in Ukraine, which is a pointless war that Ukraine cannot win, no matter what they do, and no matter how much taxpayers' money Britain and America, etc., gives to them. We were talking about this before the start of the stream here, man. We'll see what he does. I think the first thing you've got to watch with Trump is, does he pardon all the January 6th guys? If he does that, then he's passed the very first test of his presidency. But we'll see. That's my opinion
anyway. Yeah, but in terms of the original Canada story, which we've diverted from, now we've got nothing else to add on that.
Yeah, look, it's good that Trudeau's gone, he's definitely one of our enemies and always has been. That's a good thing. It's good for Canada. It's good for the Western world. So yeah, agree with you on that, Heyman. AI, did you have a first subject for this evening?
Yeah, I have actually, and this is on the topic of government elites, the cancelling elections, and the normalisation of just straight up cancelling elections. So,
I take it you're talking about the Labour Party cancelling a load of English local elections.
yeah, so it's basically cooked up between the Labour Party, which you're right, and also the Conservative Party, because a lot of council seats, places
Oh yeah,
like
they're going to
there,
lose too. Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Sorry,
because
AI, you're right. Yeah.
because a lot of the council seats this year, where the election was being held, it's places like Devon, Essex, Norfolk, which are currently held by they have a Conservative majority. So um, there is benefit on both sides of the aisle to cancel these elections. And the excuse that's been given is for, let's say, boundary changes or some nonsense, which doesn't make sense because it can be done within the year anyway. So I don't understand how this is a problem. But this is the excuse that's been given. And I think back to last year. If everyone remembers last year, you had the Romanian presidential election where the quote unquote far right pro Russian candidate won, but the elections were cancelled, the results were cancelled because uh, the court, the Supreme Court in Romania, deemed that because a handful of Russian state-backed TikTok accounts shared, I guess, edits or some sort of promotional content relating to the quote-unquote far-right candidate. That was enough to sway millions of Romanian voters and so the election was cancelled and to be held again. And this, on the back of that, we've heard EU officials who have said that this might be the new normal, a new occurrence in the future in Europe when it comes to dealing with political movements which stand, um, uh, which have ties or alliances with foreign regimes. The most obvious one I can think of coming up where this could be applied is, of course, the German federal elections, which I think is coming up this year, possibly next year.
No, it's next month.
It's next month, is it?
Is this where the EU wants to stop the lesbian right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, isn't the EU the lesbian right to begin with?
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
I was having I was when I was looking at the story, I was like, maybe the EU's right on this on this one. Maybe the EU's right. Yeah,
They're not. AI, they're not, because as Hitman said, the EU is the lesbian right. So, you know.
I mean, yeah, I won't go off onto the AFDs because that's a whole mess in on itself. But yeah, I mean, you got the AFD and whatever they're doing. But they're gaining popularity. They're obviously going to have a big breakthrough on current polls in particularly in East Germany. I mean, I think they're set to dominate all the old East German states by a significant margin. So there is that to it. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is going to become this has sort of been set as like the new normal, and this is happening here. And of course, the big thing is, well, if they can cancel local elections, yes, they do. They'd like to sort of start it off on the lower level and sort of build it up and build it up. The next thing will be they'll be cancelling um, they'll be cancelling general elections, national elections, and then just you just won't have elections at that point. So I mean, no, they don't actually believe in democratic process or anything. Or of course, they don't believe any of that. It's just power for themselves and their friends. But the problem that this system has is because the political formula is being a liberal democratic nation. Someone like Vladimir Putin can ignore liberal democratic values, and meant people like Assad in the past could do so. It didn't really affect them because that wasn't their political formula of the nation. But with the European nations, it is, and so it's something you can't really they can't really get away from.
AI, could I ask you,
Yeah.
when you say, and I understand, like, you and I are mostly in agreement on this stuff, so I'm asking you a rhetorical question largely. But when you say liberal democratic nation, what I think is, where parents are not allowed to be in charge of their own children, where children can be sent for life-changing, ruining their life, transgender surgeries and drug regimes,
And
where
prostituted off with foreigners.
prostituted to
liberal,
Pakistani rape gangs.
liberal
That
democratic values.
When I
that's
hear
right.
liberal democratic values, that's what I hear. It's got nothing to do with people deciding their own fate, because that's not what you're allowed to do at all. I mean, the British public have been against mass purport immigration going back into the 1960s, when Enoch Powell highlighted this stuff. So when you say liberal democratic values, we're really talking about bullshit, aren't we, AI?
Well, it's as
yes.
Oron McIntyre likes to say, what does democracy mean in this sentence?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, AI. I just wanted to point out that, when we talk about liberal democratic values, in air quotes, we're talking about a load of evil bullshit, basically. Mostly.
It is bullshit. I mean, you could say. I mean, I always say, that liberal democratic values is just the excuse given to rule. Kind of like in China. I mean, if you take China example, I mean, let's be honest. China doesn't follow Marxist-Leninist theory to an absolute, to the absolute letter, does it now?
No.
Even though that is the animating, principle of the state on the surface, but of course there is multiple practical ties and layers that exist underneath, which is immune, to that society that is just you cannot have like a you cannot be too like spurgy ideological on that ground, and that and that's true. I mean, that's sort of the James Burnham position. You could look at any regime, like from mid-century German to Stalin's Russia to US at the time to Britain. There was always that sort of similar managerial thing, but that's a separate story. But that's my point. My point is that this story is a potential, sort of bizarre one where you're if they can't sort of stop, populist right-wing groups, and I know, and this is something where a lot of people will come back and say, "Oh, hold on a sec. If these AFD, like the lesbian, what we call the lesbian right, if the fact that she is a lesbian with like a Sri Lankan girlfriend or wife or whatever, surely that is a signal that it's just controlled opposition, the AFD, right? Because that's kind of that's sort of like the ideal liberal worldview. You're gay, and your partner is a ethnic foreigner, like a Sri Lankan or whatever. That
Yeah,
that is
yeah,
that is
yeah.
that is like the gay liberal worldview, and it is hard to refute that because that is a pretty solid.
I agree. I
That's
agree.
pretty.
But
That's
but
yeah.
but AI, we get this in Britain with Farage, and Farage does not have a, as far as I know, a gay Sri Lankan girlfriend. You know.
He wouldn't. He wouldn't. He wouldn't be. She wouldn't be gay then. But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, he isn't. He isn't like he got like an Indian boyfriend or anything like that. No, you haven't. But this is something that is a problem because um I do think with people, particularly in the elites in Germany, is that there is an aspect of the AfD which is controlled opposition. I think the party itself is quite controlled opposition. It does sit within the uh, within the regime. It's not an outside the regime. It's not like an organized political group outside. But the problem that you got is underneath it, you do have people who are radical and who are, you got that chap in Thuringia who is um you know who has like him and his sort of group in the AfD have the ties with like the Homeland Party, so they are more nationalistic. He's able to win elections in his home state, so that is a potential threat coming from that end. But it is hard because it does seem, some say this is just the pantomime. This is how it works. The controlled opposition will be made to look like the political. I mean, there is no political outsiders because the real political outsiders are either arrested or banned or prevented from getting that far in the first place. But yeah.
Look, I just wonder this. I don't know a great deal about the AfD, but I know a bit about the Austrian version of that party with Martin Sellner, for example. And I was watching on Twitter, on X last week, people in Nick Fuentes' kind of orbit saying Martin Sellner's gay. And Martin Sellner's got one of the cutest wives you'll find anywhere. Like, she's a really, really cute girl. Don't think he's gay. Really don't, you know? And I just see this all the time on the right, where every single person who is a bit right wing, some people on the right will say, oh, no, he's not right wing enough for me, you know, when I just think we should take a bit of a lesson from the left. And if people are going to advance our cause, support them. That's what I think. But I mean, you guys tell me what you think. I don't know.
Well, it's like for all, just pretty much just like a John Stuart Mill, Gladstone kind of liberal. But
Yeah.
let's face it, he's the only show we've got in town because to the right of Farage, what is there? Like we haven't got anyone aside from Farage for the moment. So
yeah,
he's
the
only real show.
Homeland Party, who many people I see talk about, literally does not exist as a political party in Britain at the moment. So you can't support them, even if you want to.
I mean, I when it comes to the AfD stuff, I mean, I would say, and this is something that many Germans I've seen on German Twitter and stuff have pointed out is, okay, well, and the AfD have been sort of using the rhetoric of remigration or whatever the German equivalent they refer to it as, of deporting. I mean,
Ausländer raus.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that one. Of kicking out foreigners, particularly ones who've committed crimes and everything, and who no longer should be stripped and of their rights to being here. But I do think many of them have said, beware of the of like the lesbian with the Sri Lankan girlfriend, because if you're talking about deporting foreigners and everything, you can see why you could cast doubt on the lesbian with the foreign wife girlfriend.
Yeah, of course.
Deporting the foreigners.
That's
I
very
mean,
obvious.
it doesn't take. I mean, even like the village retard could probably figure out that the contradiction with that. So, and many Germans have, and that's why a lot of AFD people, particularly the ones in Thuringia, are sort of more. They don't really associate themselves widely with the party at large, but maybe more with on the state level.
Yeah,
And that is a
makes
problem for
sense.
the AFD going forward. I do think it is total clownish having for the AFD to have like their co-lead, because it's not a leader, it's like a co-leader or something like that. There's another chap who's like equal rank to her, but
Yeah,
this
yeah, Kopala is his name. He's also quite a bit of he's a bit of a more of a neocon at times in terms of Israel stuff. But even then, he's had to dial it down because the AFD grassroots are a lot more anti-Israel at this point compared to what they were like 7 years ago. So
I mean, pro-Israeli, so pro-Israel sentiment in Germany is just cursed, in my opinion, for obvious reasons. So
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I will. They for obvious reasons they can't really weigh in on that subject too much because well, number one, they're not allowed to. They'll just be arrested. But yeah, I know that the lesbian. I don't even. I forgot. What was her name? Alice something or other.
Alice Vidal.
Alice Vidal. She was on the Twitter space with Musk. Was it yesterday or day before?
Yeah, Eugippius had a thread about it. I just went off that thread.
Yeah,
I didn't even watch it, but yeah, I see what you. And
I went off.
Egyptius is okay, by the way. I don't mind it.
Yeah, Eugippius is really good, and he did like I saw that thread because I didn't watch it because I saw clips of it going around and I was like, oh. And she said, oh well, we're now a libertarian, classically liberal party or something like that, and then she said Hitler was a communist, and and then sort of for me the eye rolling sort of started, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I also saw the good old trope used out that Hitler took the guns and everything, which Zoomer Historian puts an excellent short clip out saying, actually, no, it was Weimar Republic that took the guns
Yes, yeah.
because they had to follow the Treaty of Versailles. In many ways, because the Americans took the guns, funny enough, because
Who
of the
would have
Treaty of
believed
Versailles.
that? Who would
Who
have
would have
believed
thunk?
that?
I just can't believe it. But
But you
anyway,
know,
yeah.
I will just say this, right? And as you guys know, because I constantly say so, I am not as anti-American as some of you guys, but it is a true fact that merely because most Americans are allowed to have guns, it doesn't really improve their situation very much, insofar as I can see.
Yeah, bearing and it's like about what was it, Little Rock, Arkansas, where Eisenhower sent him a federal guard with bayonets. Well, the federal as a national guard to force students at bayonet point to share school spaces with blacks against their will.
Yeah.
So,
Or look at Waco, or look at what's his name,
Ruby Ridge, yeah.
Ruby Ridge, any of these places. Having guns does not save you from the state, because strangely enough, half a dozen people with rifles can't be an army.
Yeah, and as Biden said, we've got F-16s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah, so there is that too. I mean, on that particular thing with the AFD, I think the AFD. I mean, we have to be realistic with Germany. There is no. You're not going to get sort of like base German nationalism in the way that we would expect it, because legally it's just not allowed in Germany. It is illegal to even.
AI, let me ask you a question. How much do you think that the attacks on the various populist right-wing people, whether it be in Germany or Britain or Austria or Australia or or Canada, wherever it might be, how much do you think, and I'll ask the other guests the same question after AI gives his opinion, how much of this do you think is organized by our vile globalist governments? Because they know the right is so easy to start attacking each other, which the left, of course, never does.
I do believe that reform has been pushed in the media. That is true. We've seen multiple newspapers. It kind of seems that they are being promoted as the opposition party.
Up to a point.
I think there has been since the election, or in recent months, in the last few months, that they are sort of being positioned as the party in waiting, and it's helped with their poll numbers and support and all that sort of stuff. I get that. I also think that there's no coincidence that a lesbian with a foreign girlfriend is at the head of the AFD, where the main problem in Germany is foreign nationals, where many Germans want deportations. I also don't think that's a coincidence that there is deliberate things. So I do think there is an aspect of a lot of the containment stuff where people in these populist movements are put in place. I mean, for the number one, the main sole purpose of these populist lot is they support Israel above anything else. That's something you do see quite often. People like Geert Wilders, massive Zionist.
Sure.
Alice is a big star. I think Maloney is also signalled that way, and you see it, and even Viktor Orban is a Zionist, and it's usually done through counter jihad means, right? It's through down through the what Morgoth called the counter jihad. I do. So on the final point, yes, I do think because of course, but the thing is, if you put let's not be coy about it. The AFD is, I mean, even though they call themselves libertarian, or she calls herself a libertarian party, or whatever nonsense the lesbian Reichsführer Ubermensch comes up with, it doesn't matter, because in the German minds who vote for them, they're voting for the AFD for a nationalistic purpose. But instead, what they're getting is lesbian with a Sri Lankan wife. And that's the political reality.
Hitman.
Well, I was just about to say, you're listing all of these, populist leaders who are pro-Israel. Well, the most cursed one, I think, is Marine Le Pen, because obviously her father passed away in the past week, and he was certainly not a fan of the nation of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, we should actually do like a eulogy on this stream for.
No, we're not going to do that. Look, I'm not pro-French. But anyway.
Well, I mean, I'm pro-French in so I want them to live so I can carry on hating them. If that's what.
Yeah, a fair point. A fair point, Mitch. But no. I want to bring this back to what I was really asking AI the question about, is how much of this stuff where like everyone on the right has bad things about them, their containment, they're this, they're that. How much of that do you guys think? Because I think a fair bit of it is actually launched by our enemies.
I mean, it's like someone like Trump. He gives us a fair crack of a whip, but he's still containment in a lot of ways. Like, that's one thing you just have to take into a cost-benefit analysis.
So you would, Mitch, you would vote for Attila the Hun, yeah?
Well, what argument is this? I mean, I can still vote for.
What I'm trying to say
is just at the end of the day, you're gonna have to accept that to some extent he can also act as containment. Like, he's both a disruptor, but he's also containment in other ways as well. Same with
Yeah,
Farage.
absolutely, and I totally agree with you. But when I say you would vote for Attila the Hun, what I mean is there is no Attila the Hun to vote for.
Yeah, why would have? What? I don't even get your argument on this one. Like Attila, like
Well, we look, if you're an American, you can vote for Trump. You can't vote for Attila the Hun because there ain't one. All right. If you're British, you can vote for Nigel Farage. You can't vote for Attila the Hun because there isn't one. In British terms, there isn't even an Alfred the Great you can vote for. All right.
right,
There
right.
isn't.
Right, that's my point. Is in fact like Charles Haywood made this on I think on Lotus, if I'm not mistaken. He said on one hand, yes, likes of Trump and Farage are disruptors. Like they do have fair growth of the system. However, they are containment in the sense that they don't shake things up massively. They still buy into some of the system's priors. Like for example, at the end of the day, like for example, Farage is a massive boomer truth regime type in terms of World War II.
Yeah,
That's
to
just
some
nothing.
degree. To some degree, yeah.
Well, he's full on with it because I mean he still thinks of Churchill as a massive hero. So at the end of the day,
well, that's a huge mistake, but yeah, I agree.
yeah, but that's the problem, though, isn't it? That's the whole point. Is the fact that yeah, he's a disruptor. He's more our way than let's say someone like Starmer. So there's a net benefit to having someone like Farage in charge. However, you still have to admit that on some matters he is not really our guy, and he can act as a bit of a containment mechanism by the regime on some parts. Like for example, back on October the 7th, Farage said he was pro-Israel. Now, before that, he never really talked about Israel. Like there was one time where he got bollocking because he said about the AIPAC lobby of America back in like 2017.
He did. Yes, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was also quite Farage was also quite outspoken about Ukraine.
Well, yeah, that's one thing, Robbo, isn't it? It's like so Trump, yeah, he'll speak about Ukraine in a way that the neocons don't like, but and stuff like Israel versus Iran, Trump is full on board with Israel. So yes, he's still part of the system. He has been caught. He still believes in some of what the system has to offer, but he still also disrupts it in a lot of ways. Because, for example, Trump doesn't believe in all the anti-white shit that the establishment in America does. Same with Farage over here.
Yep.
So yes, they're disruptors, but that doesn't negate the fact that they also are containment in some other factors. No, but both two things can be true at once.
This is what I was trying to get onto.
Yeah,
This is what I was trying to get onto. It's just so easy to set the right against each other. It's really easy. You can be a dimbo globalist liberal and easily set the right against each other. It's so fucking easy. It's unbelievable.
Right.
Hold on. But the reason why I use the AFD example is going back to the AFD. You had AFD main party led by lesbian with the Sri Lankan girlfriend. When
Don't
they went
disagree
into
with you on that one.
yeah,
when they went about.
Yeah, when they went into state elections, okay, with the main they came second. They got close, but they came second. Now take Bjorn Hock, who is the leader of the AFD in Thuringia, and he's been widely condemned by, I think, Alice and others in the AFD as in the past for his views. I mean, he seems like a really kind of base guy because he's talked about he isn't like he's talked about like Prussian idealism. He's talked about he's used certain rhetoric which is just straight out nationalist. He's described the period of the German heyday between the German people, the German civilization at its heyday between 1871 and 1940 to 1914. So he is, he is for a German, and he has been fined, and there have been cases brought against him for use of Nazi slogan and anti-Semitism and all that sort of stuff because he isn't big on the. I think it was a memorial to Holocaust, some sort of Holocaust memorial. He wasn't big on in the one local area, and even though he is described as like the beyond the pale in German politics, the absolute beyond the pale, outside the system, Attila the Hun, if you will, in your example. And what happened? He didn't just win his state; he won it by a significant margin. He I think he got what was it? The AfD got 32 seats, and the CDU got 23. And so that's my point. Is usually the argument you have is, well, if you're too radical, you won't win. You'll put people off. But Germany, which, let's be honest, is quite cucked. Like, the people in it are quite cucked because of decades of indoctrination after the war. But even with that, there was still that breakthrough. So, but you're right. The trouble is, elsewhere, it's very difficult for those figures to exist, and because those sorts of people like Bo, for example, are rooted out at the source, so that you don't have those those sorts of people. But you do have odd occasions where they will appear, but I mean, we shall see. I reckon he'll be taken. Bjorn Hock will be taken out of commission if the AfD win in Germany. I don't think he will be allowed to pose a threat within the party.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy who, he'll be like seen as like a disposable foot soldier once the election's over. Let's say, well, I mean, I do think like AfD, I don't think they can win because outside of East Germany and Thuringen, it just looks like the West Germany is completely like they're hard done over by all the denazification stuff that happened after World War II. I just don't know what to think about. Like you say, for example, Niedersachsen or Schleswig-Holstein, they just always vote SPD or Green Party. Or you got Bavaria, who are hard hit by a lot of immigration. They still vote, but said it all. Well, they're voting that Christian Social Party, which is basically their version of a Tory party. Still, I think
just to give people a bad of how bad denazification has affected the German psyche, there have been German men who have been raped by migrants, and afterwards have said in press statements that they feel guilty that they went to the police because the guy who did it has been locked up and risk of deportation. I mean, it really has had a serious psychological impact on the German people. With the last 70 odd years, it's had a terrible impact. It really has.
What you say there, AI, is vile. I'm not saying it's not true, but if it is true, it's vile. Hitman, what do you think about this?
Well, ultimately, it's true to some extent that a lot of the infighting, I think, is encouraged by the powers that be. But I also just think there's a very interesting insight that the psychologist Josh Neal in his book American Extremist did, where because in that book he looks at the psychology of political extremism, and he looks at the left-wing radicals and right-wing radicals, and he says the problem with right-wing radicals is that they all think they're the Nietzschean Übermensch. They all think that they're going to be the one who saves their countries or is going to be the hero of the movement, and so they always see each other as like rivals, and they always do the whole crabs in the bucket essentially.
Yep. That's my view entirely. I just think if you look at the history of the Western world over the last 80 years, let's say, since World War II, it's inching left all the time. It's inching left. And the left never had a problem with taking little wins. which they got all the time. All the time, the
Right.
left got little wins.
Right, I will caveat this by saying, look, the idea that the left never fight amongst themselves, that's crap.
No, but they
like you
don't
said,
do it in public much, Mitch. They don't do it in public much.
Have you seen literally any leftist space ever? Half the left hate Starmer.
I can barely bring myself to watch the left. But
So,
I mean,
the point is, when I say they don't do it in public much, I mean they don't do it so the general public can see them much.
What I don't even get where you're coming from. I mean, you can literally. I mean, you've got Corbyn, who got chucked out the Labour Party. You've got the Green Party, who spend their time literally calling Starmer at times, I believe, some fascist or whatever, apparently, because I don't know, he's doing austerity. They allege all this. Like the idea that the left never infight and never do so publicly.
Hang on, Mitch,
again, this is bollocks.
Mitch, hang on. How can the Greens talk about Starmer doing austerity when, if we followed the actual Green policy, anything Starmer did as austerity would be minor?
Well, the Green Party,
as you know, and I know you know this.
Well, the Green Party voted in favour of the Muslims over the national equality over grooming gangs, so don't expect the Green Party ever be on our side anytime soon. Put it that way.
No, of course not. I know this, mate. But all I'm trying to say is,
like left, like they have no sense of self-awareness. Great, like good job. Like we all know the Green Party are just complete load of retards. Like but that's just the way they are. You know.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, us four guys on here now, right? I am pretty certain that we would all agree with each other at least 95%. All right? But we're still managing to argue about this. Whereas, yeah, all right, I know the left has arguments, but like they have arguments deep within their own sphere. Like the mainstream public never gets to see those.
Well, 22 Labour MPs were taken off over the winter fuel payment when they voted against the Labour line on winter fuel payments. So the idea that leftists never infight publicly, well, that's just crap. Like it does happen. You just don't really come across it because
because the mainstream media never talks about it.
I mean,
because you don't bother looking.
If we were to compare ourselves to left-wing streamers, I have seen like Destiny and people like that call other, left-wing.
When you say Destiny, AI, just to let people know who you're talking about. This is in inverted commas, man who was actually a cuck and actually put out a video of him sucking some other dude's member.
The same one. But I've seen him and his sort of people in the orbit. Well, I don't know their names, but his people that he regularly has on his stream are also like left wing, and people like the Young Turks. They refer on the public level, and I sort of agree on Mitch on this point. Whenever they come across disagreement internally, all they usually do is they just refer to each other as right-wing reactionaries, or subversives within the movement and traitors. So I think us four, we wouldn't call each other's like communist infiltrators or apart from that one time where we did have a communist infiltrator on here.
Yes, we did.
But apart from that, we wouldn't call ourselves, enemies and traitors and and all that sort of stuff. So I don't think it's as bad as you might be making out there, Iron Duke. But what I do think is where reform has to learn, if they want our support, if they want that sort of support, that unity, or not support, let's use unity. If they want that unity going forward and other parties, they have to, and this is just basic, this is just going to come down to basic. Labour Party, currently, they reward their friends while in government. They reward the people who vote for them. They reward them on jobs and multiple other levels.
Yeah,
If reform wins,
Labour are mad keen on Islamic rape gangs. They're good as far as Labour's concerned.
that community is protected to their hilt on several layers. If reform wins, they have to give us and people like us on here that special treatment, that we are to be the sole benefactors of that, and our communities and our people. We are to receive that, and this is where the Tories failed, because they punish their people who, because on paper, the Conservative Party would all have our votes, right? Strip back everything that we believe in.
If they hadn't done anything since 1900, maybe. But yeah,
Maybe,
okay.
yeah, on that level. But of course, that's not been the case. And so this is where the reform will have to learn from the Tories' mistakes: is you don't get into power and then punish your friends and reward your enemies. That's not how that ain't going to cut it, because reform will just go the same way as the Tories.
And let's be honest here. What Reform's friends are the real British Anglo-Celtic people. That's their friends.
Yeah,
or should be.
And so whenever I do criticize Iron Duke, and it's important that you and others know that I'm not doing it because I want to see it fail or collapse. I'd have nothing better than to see the Starmer out as soon as possible.
Yes.
But all I say is, with reform, is you have to reward friends. You're not to reward your enemies, otherwise you will go the same way as the Labour Party.
100%.
And that is what it comes down to. And whenever I see signalling by, whether it's Farage or Tice or anybody in reform, who is rewarding enemies and punishing friends, I will criticize them. I will make it public, and I will shame them, and I will make it so that along with many others, as uncomfortable as possible, because that is how you get the message across.
I don't disagree with you, AI. Look, Farage and Reform's friends are the real Anglo-Celtic British people. As far as that goes, totally agree with you. Anyway, Mitch, did you have a first subject for this evening?
I suppose might as well get that Farage misquoted clip out of the way. If you've seen some other polls, they're saying that Farage is polling higher than the Tories as of the last few days.
Yep, looks like Reform are overtaking them.
Yeah, one poll, for example, said both Reform and Labour were equal at 25% of the vote. Poll that came out a couple of hours ago said Reform is second place to Labour, who for some reason are on 29% of the vote, which kind of tells you.
Yeah.
That 29%, a lot of that's going to be either public sector workers, disabled people who Max Tempers has been declaring war on as of late, or the migrant clientele. So I'm seeing someone in chat saying Farage is quite clueless or slow. I mean, one thing we have to keep in mind. I mean, Liz Truss, for example, in that Peter McCormack podcast, she said that 2/3 of the population, so 68% of the population, still think of the BBC as their main source of news.
Wow, don't believe that for a minute, but okay.
I will say, Duke, you have. I mean, I can believe that at times, going off a lot of the people above the age of 50 in my neck of the woods.
Oh, okay, yeah, some elderly people, probably my age and above. But
yeah, but
I don't think that's the majority anymore.
You got to factor, given that turnout goes up with age, you're going to have a situation where mainstream media still has an impact. For example, only 60% of Zoomers actually bother to vote. Whereas,
Yep.
for example, amongst the elderly, it's like 90-odd%, something like that. So that's why for I don't like the fact that Farage keeps going on some mainstream media all the time just to get misquoted or whatever. But I can understand why he's doing it, because at the end of the day, turnout goes up with older people as opposed to the young.
All right, Mitch, let me ask you this question, because this has been one of the misquotes. Farage does not want that Begum ISIS terrorist woman back in Britain. He doesn't. He's always said he doesn't. But now we got people saying, oh, no, now he's singing about it. No, he hasn't.
Yeah, this is like, I think like Steve Laws, for example, I've quoted him about it, and too many people read only the headline, but didn't read the argument. Now, my problem with Farage's take is, so Farage I don't think Farage supported death penalty. So that's my main problem with that. Because the thing was, the context was, Seb Gorka said, we on this side of the Atlantic, we European countries have to take in some of these ISIS types because they're our citizens. And because of the Syrian regime being practically ISIS at this point, we can't trust them to keep a lid on all this. So
the only way, like, ISIS sluts like Begum should be allowed back into Britain is if she's going to be executed. That's the only way.
Yeah, but that's a problem with that's my main issue with reform. Like, Farage clumsily worded it, so he gets misquoted easily. Then there's also the fact that also I've got my own personal critique of this, being that, well, what punishment is there for someone like Shamima Begum if she were to come back to Britain?
She should be executed. That should be, let her come back to Britain, but she should be killed.
Yeah, but
that's it.
The problem is, we don't. Farage doesn't believe in the death penalty. So if we had a reform government taking in all these people, they'd just be put on. They'll just be costing the taxpayer X amount of money in maximum security prison. So it's a shit sandwich born by Bashar al-Assad being turfed out, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mitch. Hitman, what do you think?
Well, I think Farage should have been a bit more careful in how he worded that. I mean, even with his actual take, I still don't agree we should have Shamima Begum back unless, it's going to be the hangman's noose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd bring her back tomorrow, so long as she knows she's going to get executed. Otherwise, she's in Syria, and good luck to her.
Sorry.
I was just going to say quickly. I think she should be hanged until she is dead, and we shall air it before X Factor, before Question Time.
No, I think we should just abolish them forever and just broadcast it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I've got no interest in this vile woman who supported Islamists. But then, of course, you've also got to recognize that the Islamists in Syria are supported both by the American CIA and by the British MI6. They are.
Yeah, I've seen some people on our side who said, "Oh, well, why do we give a damn about these ISIS types? Let them bugger about in Syria." And I go, the problem with that is if they reunite the whole ISIS band, then we just go back to 2015 all over again. And the problem is, we just get a shit sandwich born out of all this. That's what Farage was responding to. I would prefer if reform were to bring back the death penalty because, if I speak to my local reform section, if I'd say to them, okay, what do you think of bringing back the death penalty, especially for boomers, or just like, yeah, bring it back. And I got talking to one guy I know from reform earlier today, and I just asked him, "Oh, what's a reaction towards this?" Fraudulently, yeah. First of all, they're saying he's misquoted, but also they're saying they just think bring back the death penalty. basically. I mean, this is our boomers as well. This is not like younger generation. This is boomers. So it's like, but they were saying like Farage was being statesmanlike as well in this response. So that's another thing that people on our side kind of have to be wary of. Is at the end of the day, Farage had a point, but there's still problems with his argument. Namely, one being he doesn't support the death penalty. So what would be the punishment in bringing back Begum over it, for example?
Yep. Why should the British public pay hundreds of thousands of pounds every year to keep her in prison? No, just kill her.
Yeah, and it's like another problem was so you have Rupert Lowe, for example. He's going on about dual nationals, doing a lot of weapon. The problem is, out of like, I think it's like well over 1 million Pakistanis we've got, only 14,000 of them are actually dual nationals. So
Well,
it's not
all of those guys should be sent back home.
the problem you've got with that is they've actually been done before, but they get a loophole done where they scrap their Pakistani citizenship, so they've only got British. And the problem with that is because of the Human Rights Act that Tony Blair brought in, amongst other stuff, we
So
can't import them.
you got to scrap the Human Rights Act. That's
Yeah,
not
but
that difficult.
This is the thing about like Rupert Lowe. He's talked about dual nationals and that's the main hole in the argument. He says deport dual nationals. Okay, but the problem is you can't deport them if they get into that loophole.
Okay,
so you have to close. You'd have to rewrite nationality law to make
exactly,
sure
and that's not that difficult, Mitch.
Yeah, but that's the problem at the moment. Like, you know, let's say Rupert Lowe's let's say so it becomes kind of a bit redundant at the moment if Rupert Lowe were to just he comes out with saying, let's see how many dual nationals are behind a lot of the crime. I mean, it's only like a small portion. Then he has the question of then he has to start approaching more our point of view, but I don't think he's ready to cross that Rubicon of integration can never work because he still argues with some of our goals about it, unfortunately, which at the end of the day, there are limitations to where someone like Rupert Lowe can go. He still believes that integration can happen, and this is one limitation with reform. They still believe
integration can hardly ever happen. It hardly ever works.
Yeah, so this then
and everyone on this stream knows that's true. It hardly ever works.
And that's a problem for reform, is the fact that they are still a bit naive about this question of, or can we assimilate like these minorities and go?
No, we can't. No, we can't. Did any of you guys watch the? Hang on, I've got to get this right. Hang on, I have to get this right. So I'm going to go and check it. Here we are. Did anyone see the video that the Welsh Refugee Council put out using 12-year-old, I don't know, 10, 11, 12-year-old little Welsh girls to try and encourage migrants to move to Wales? Did anyone watch that video on X, on Twitter?
I briefly saw it.
I skimmed. I saw it, and it was very dark. It was a very dark bit of evil. That on multiple layers. The fact that they used young girls,
little children,
little children, underage children, really fucking dark, very evil. To be honest, I was watching it and I was just like, I want names. I want names for future.
Who put this out?
Yeah,
Who put this out?
For future benefit, I want names and absolutely vile shit.
Yeah, 100% AI. I couldn't agree with
Oh,
you more.
I don't know if you saw that Annalise Dodds woman who's on the front bench of the Labour government. She said, "Oh, well, isn't it a terrible shame that the Taliban are no longer allowing young Afghan girls to be educated?" And by education, of course, it's like they're being educated about third wave feminism and stupid crap like that. And I'm sat there thinking, right, so young English girls get raped and young Afghan girls get concern trolled by the Labour Party. Wow. I was actually joking to a guy in a pub earlier this week saying, "Oh, well, the average Labour right will be like, oh, yeah, they'll cry to the hills about Afghan girls not getting a feminist education, but will say nothing when young English girls get raped." And it's literally just my meme, just manifesting in reality.
Well, look, I was listening to stuff today, Mitch, on X and Twitter, etc., where British police called 11, 12, and 13-year-old British girls slappers. British police, not
Yeah, you can thank
Pakistani rape gangs. British
you can
police.
thank Golden Brown for that one back in 2008.
But you see, these girls have made an informed choice, so yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I mean,
here, man,
yeah.
I know you'll agree with me. Like, if you're under 18, you cannot consent to sex.
No, this is what Lady Charlotte was talking about in her article. Like, the point of the age of consent is you cannot consent if you are not of the age.
Exactly. And Lady
I mean,
Shaw has an excellent Substack about this, which people should go and look at. But,
and
if you're underage, it doesn't matter what your views are. If you're underage, you cannot consent.
well, just to add on to this,
And so the police's option is obviously the man in that situation is always wrong. Always.
But just to add on to that, because I've recently had to look into the age of consent laws, and I discovered that because I always thought our age of consent laws were higher but were brought down due to that moral decline. What I didn't realise is that the age of consent before the current one of 16 was actually 13, and that wasn't increased until the end of the 19th century. And it was the I think it's called the Sexual Relations Act.
100 years ago.
Yeah, it was
100 years ago.
1885. It was actually called the Stead Act after the journalist William T. Stead, who went on a moral crusade in the 1880s. And the reason he went on this crusade to raise the age of consent is because there were young girls being prostituted in London. And so to stop that from happening, that's why he campaigned for it to be increased.
100%. But over 100 years ago, and the fact was, look, I'm trying to remember what that British policewoman who was excellent. I'm trying to think what her name was. She
Maggie
lost
Oliver.
Maggie Oliver.
Maggie Oliver. That's right. And she pointed out many times that the thing for the police was that if the girl was underage, she could not consent, which always meant any blokes that were with her were in the wrong. And she was entirely right about that. And we had 11-year-old English girls, British girls, being like gang raped, tortured, and humiliated, who the British cops turned around and said, "Oh no, they're just slappers and they've made their own decision." How can an 11-year-old girl or a 13-year-old girl make her own decision? She cannot. She is a child. It's craziness.
It's not really craziness. It's just more a matter of it's more a question of malice with a lot of these people. I mean, some
Yes.
people say, oh, well, it's because they're blinded by ideology. Well, but that's like saying, oh, well, Aztecs were just blinded by religion when they were whipping at the hearts of their own of captives for the sake of their sun god or whatever. And so, well, okay, that just denies agency on their part, or you could just easily ascribe it to a sense of evil, the kind of evil where you just go, okay, there's going to be a long list of these people's names, and yeah, you can imagine someone like Rupert Lowe will make sure these people get sent out. Now, the problem is, of course, you'd have to do a deep purge of the civil service, like judges and whatnot. But
Yep.
justice
100%.
justice will happen. I think, yeah. I don't know if you saw I remember quote tweeting this guy who actually works in the Pakistani government. He was having a bollock at Rupert Lowe for calling his rapist Pakistani rapist. So yeah, that's where you come. That's where we're at. Like even the Pakistani government, like elements of the Pakistani government, are having a bollock at Rupert Lowe for saying the phrase Pakistani rape gang.
Hey. Like I've heard people in Britain saying grooming gangs is racist. No, it's not. Grooming gangs is the British government and establishment synonym for Pakistani rape and torture gangs. That's what it should really be called, because that's what they really are. And this shit is still going on. It's not stopped. It's still going on in Britain. It makes me sick. I can't even imagine it in some respects.
Well, when I read Lady Schlott's article the other day, I could only feel rage, an unholy rage.
Yep, 100%, mate. Totally agree with
I
you.
mean,
man.
the worst perpetrator of the Rotherham one, which is the famous one that a lot of recited. I mean, it seems like there was with Rotherham an organized criminal element between various kebab and also taxi services, and the person who was the most sort of like senior group in that gang became the he had a relative who was in the police force called like Hussein Ali something or other, and then this Pakistani chap was the deputy leader of the council. He became a Labour councillor, and he was on the board of crime prevention for the council, if you believe it or not.
Oh, look, the AI, look, this might destroy this channel. All right, but I'm going to say it anyway. These were racial crimes carried out against white little British girls as young as 11, and they were done racially, totally. And anyone who denies that is a scumbag liar. And incidentally, I will mention Nigel Farage has recently said the same thing. And he is correct. They were racial anti-white crimes carried out by mostly Pakistani, but also other third world immigrants into Britain, who the British government encouraged to come here.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw that Mithras article. Apparently, the first Pakistani grooming gang came around in Clement Attlee's time, so you can thank Clement Attlee for starting the Pakistani rape gang trend.
Totally agree.
Yeah, so Clement Attlee has a lot to answer for.
He was a vile human being and very anti-British, 100%. anyone who doesn't think he is knows nothing of history.
Well, it's very interesting considering his choice of profession because, like Starmer, he was a lawyer.
What a surprise! Yeah.
Yeah, and it's I think the problem you've got with Clement Attlee is, first of all, I mean, like people don't really know of him. They just think, oh well, he was just a boring bureaucrat type. They can't really ascribe like I can't really ascribe cover up of Pakistani grape gangs. I mean, it wasn't as big as it would be later on in nowadays, but there were certainly cases of it popping up in like 1949. I believe it was 1950 when Clement Attlee was, of course, prime minister. But also because Clement Attlee's government, they created the NHS, so everything Clement Attlee. So Clement Attlee's kind of seen like the Midas, like King Midas of Labour. Anything he touched must be good.
I hate that. I hate that cunt, but that's just me. But anyway.
I've got a very interesting story to share because just before Christmas, this random video came on my recommended feed, and it's these two like older middle-aged white working class guys who are from what they were saying, they were both affiliated with Galloway's Workers' Party, so they're like proper Marxist commie types. And I don't know why, it just piqued my curiosity, so I clicked on this video because they were talking about Paul Embry's book Despised, and it's just really interesting because they were saying like, how long have Labour not represented the working class? And one guy was saying, oh, I don't think they've represented them ever since Attlee took over in the 1930s. And I'm like, wow, bloody hell, that's a long time. And then the other guy was like, well, for me, I don't think they've ever represented the working class. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
100%, man. Totally agree.
I mean, and these were like radical communists. I mean, one of the guys had like a Lenin poster on his wall, and the other guy had a picture of Che Guevara in the background. So,
yeah, totally agree. Hitman, please plug your channel.
Yes, I have a channel. I do weekly streams, and in a couple of weeks, on the 21st of January, I shall be having Semiagog on. We're going to be discussing the book The Anglo-American Establishment by Carol Quigley. So if you're interested in the elite of the late British Empire, please give that a watch.
That sounds very interesting, Hitman. Yeah, cool. And your channel is called?
It's just called Hitman.
There you go.
Well, specifically the handle's Hitman9801, to be specific.
There you go. I will put a link to Hitman's channel below the stream later on. Mitch, anything you wanted to plug, mate?
No, not from me.
AI, you've got a channel, I know you have, so please plug it.
Yeah, AI. I think I changed the channel name actually, but it's AI Shire Tory. If you come up, it'll still come up on my channel. But I've for this year I've got starting from next week I've got my sort of weekly roundup show. I'm also starting with Connor, the cartoon with the Richard Hilton mysterious death of the British Empire. So check that out. So that'll be starting from next week. So yeah.
AI, I'm still waiting for you to carry on with your British Empire series because I'm an occasional guest. But there we go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We will get it done this year. We will complete the book this year.
All right. I just need to say to people, I have told people I'm going to be doing streams about the Jameson raid and Rorke's Drift and Issa Luana with one of our friends from on here. But he has, unfortunately, one of his relatives has been sick. So they've been put back to March. But we will do those streams in due course. So yeah, I'll just say that. Thank you to my guests, Hitman, Mitch, AI. Guys, go well. Never let the bastards grind you down, because if you do, you're going to lose. And I'm going to play us out of a tune. Okay, that was the 7th Royal Fusiliers, which, by the way, was the regiment Michael Caine fought in the Korean War between 1951 and 1953. Fine London regiment. That particular painting was from Gibraltar. Malta, I think, in the 1840s. Do go and check out Patriotic Archive. Excellent channel. Very good tunes. Thank you once again to my guests, Hitman Mitch and AI. Go well. We'll see you next week. Don't let the bastards grind you down.